Indie Beacon Radio with host B Alan Bourgeois. Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Indie Beacon Show. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois. And today I have with me Steve Bellinger from the Chicago area, or formerly as from the Chicago area, where he started off young, reading science fiction novels and got the itch to write. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what made the interest of writing sci-fi and all that stuff come to life?
Well, my mom worked nights at a printing company, and she would bring books home for us to read. Well, she'd bring all sorts of things, and just that got me interested in reading. And one day she brought a copy of Isaac Asimov's I, Robot. I read that and completely fell in love with him and science fiction. And I guess I've always been creative, so my goal was to write my own science fiction.
All right, so you were always creative in what ways?
Oh, I always like to write and draw. I'm not much of an artist, but I mean, as a kid, I used to write a lot. I used to watch a lot of TV, and I wanted to be like the people on TV, the newscasters and the weather reporters, and I just enjoyed media.
Now, they say that there is a time period that kids, when they fall in love with something in a certain age range, that's really what they should be doing as an adult. So what was the age range you were falling in love with writing and all this?
Oh, this is like 10, 12.
That's the age range that most professionals say. So I'm glad to hear that, because that was with me too. So that's cool. So you've got into writing, you've done short stories, and you've done a whole bunch of other things. You actually were even a DJ at one time at a radio station.
Well, that was in college, yes.
And that was really fun, I bet.
Oh yeah, lots of fun. In fact, that evolved beyond that, because when I graduated, I started playing around with radio drama. And I actually wrote and produced a number of radio programs.
Sweet. Did you get the actors to do their job, or did you just pass it on to somebody else to fulfill all that?
Well, I did all of it. I actually auditioned actors. Fortunately, they were good friends. They did it for nothing. I did the writing. I did the recording. I did all of the engineering. In fact, what started it was when I was a freshman in high school, and I heard Orson Welles' War of the Worlds for the first time. And I was determined to do my own version. And in 1978, I did a modern version of War of the Worlds entitled Day of the Martians. And you can actually hear that on my website.
Cool. We'll definitely make sure we get a link for that so that we can share that with people, because that would be interesting to hear. Have you thought of maybe even updating it now in the 2000?
No, I think I've sort of given that up. I no longer have the equipment that I had back then.
Yeah, that would help, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that was all done analog, reel-to-reel tape. So, you know, the digital stuff is just not as much fun to me.
Cool. So you got into the writing, you did your first book, and what possessed you to write the Chrono Car?
Well, interesting story. I had a friend that I went to college with, kind of eccentric sort of guy, and years after we graduated, I ran into him on the street. I would see him like once every month or so, because we would pass each other going to work. And, you know, we'd stop, he'd have interesting ideas. One day he stopped and said, you know, Steve, I think I found the secret to time travel. My response was, okay, sure. But then I didn't see the guy for like 3 months. And it made me wonder, what if an ordinary person could build a time machine? Now, I did see the guy a couple of weeks later, and it never came up again. But the whole idea behind the Chrono Car is that a time machine is not difficult to build.
Okay, so I mean, all the other ones, the various types of books, you know, I've been this dramatic, secret and stuff. So you actually narrowed it down to saying, hey, anybody can do it.
Well, yes, it starts off with son of a slave, a gentleman who's also a genius, and he manages to get a PhD in physics, and he figures out the secret of time travel. And he publishes it in an obscure journal, thinking no one ever look at it or read it. And 125 years later, a black IIT student finds the plans, realizes it's not that difficult, and builds the Chrono Car. And what he does is he goes back to the year 1919 to visit the doctor and gets mixed up in the city's bloodiest race riot.
Okay. And this was your first one, but you have written several others. So are they all related or do they stand alone?
Well, yes and no. You don't have to read the Chronocar to understand the other books, but they take place in the same universe, if that makes sense.
Okay. So you're able to understand that if you read them separately and not in order, that they are still dealing with the same universe because they talk about the same and stuff like that.
Exactly. I've had people read just one of them and not get it all confused.
Okay. Now, you mentioned just a moment ago that the person had gone into, if I heard correctly, a race riot. Was that correct?
Right. It's the Red Summer Riots of 1919. He goes back to visit the doctor in that year. That's when he knows when to find him, not knowing he was going to get mixed up in the riot. So the book is actually a lot of historical fiction also. Took a couple of years of research.
So I've got to ask, because this is being recorded during a very heavy time for the country, and specifically in race. So with what is going on, referencing to George Floyd and the other situations, have you thought of anything else that you may be able to do as far as the book about possible time travel to alter things or to make sure this doesn't happen or any of that stuff?
Well, there's a sequel to the Chronocar, which will hopefully be my fourth book, but it's actually already written, and it doesn't really relate to any of this. The Chronocar and all of my books are basically science fiction, more so that than social commentary. So the race riot is just part of the setting and part of the plot of the story. So it really wasn't intended to teach any lessons other than just because it's possible doesn't mean you should do it. Or maybe it's not nice to fool with Mother Nature.
Yeah, she can get very temperamental. So then you've written a second book, and if I understand correctly, it was The Edge of Perception, correct?
Yes. It's a paranormal science fiction love story. The thing behind that is that I've had, there's a little bit of my life in that, and I've had a lot of not indirect encounters with the paranormal, and I've often wondered about it, but I didn't want to write a ghost story. My wife and I were watching TV one night and saw this series called Ghost Hunters, and what captured my interest there was the fact that they were using electronic equipment to detect spirits, because spirits are, after all, electromagnetic energy. That's the science, and that's where the science fiction comes in for that novel.
Okay, so have you actually looked at those type of equipments, you know, through conventions or anything of that nature, or done research for that?
Well, yeah, I did the research for the sake of the book. Now, whether or not I believe they work as they say, I don't know. In the book, in the novel, they do. Do they work in reality? I don't know. I don't think anyone knows.
Are you curious?
Oh, absolutely. Am I curious enough to go into a haunted house? I'm not sure about that, but I am.
Excuse me, I can't blame you on that one. I have mixed emotions on that as well. So,
sure. I tell people that there are two types of people in the world: people who believe in spirits and people who don't believe in spirits but would not visit a haunted house. And I'm in that second group.
Now, oddly enough, I do believe in spirits, but I'm not sure how I would respond if someone actually came up to me and tried to shake my hand or something.
Exactly.
That's where I'm at. So, both of your books won awards, correct?
Well, the Chronocar won a number of awards. The other books have gotten some great reviews. The Chronocar surprised the heck out of me. It won the Reader's Favorite Gold Medal for science fiction, the indie book science fiction first place medal. I mean, it surprised the heck out of me. The greatest honor, though, was that the story takes place partially on the campus of the Illinois Institute of Technology here in Chicago, and I am an alum of IIT. I did a presentation there, and they asked for a couple of copies, and one copy is in the university library, the other copy is in the university archives, which shocked the heck out of me. Great honor.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a perfect spot for us to go ahead and stop before we get into book number 3 and other projects you have going on. So we're going to take a break and let our sponsors do their thing. We'll be right back.
I'm Roxburkey. And I'm Charles Brakefield. We're award-winning co-authors, Brakefield and Berkey, of the Enigma book series. There are 10 books in the series, with book number 11 planned for release in January 2020.
Each story has a central technology focus ranging from identity theft to cryptocurrency and now AI wars. These adult techno thrillers pit cyber good guys against cyber thugs across the darknet.
In our world, technology is today's weapon of choice. You can enjoy ebook format, paper, or Audible. We want your feedback.
Until the next story, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, hello there, my friends. My name is Randy James, independent voiceover producer in the Dallas, Texas area, available to write and record a 30-second commercial, much like the one you're hearing right now. It's a great way to help increase awareness and exposure to your book title. It's easy to do. Simply call me and we'll brainstorm on a few ideas, and in a few hours, I'll whip something up and send you a digital file ready to use. Remember, call or text me, Randy James, at 214-762-1942.
Welcome to IndieLector.store, an online bookstore where the discriminating reader can find award-winning books. IndieLector.store is not a big corporation, so we can give up to 80% of the sales directly to the author. Help us support them by buying a great book at IndieLector.store.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have two new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back. I am with Steve Bellinger, who is actually a little tidbit we're going to get into a little bit further down the line. But Steve Bellinger is with us at the Indie Beacon Show, and welcome back, Steve. In the last section, we had talked about your two books, The Chrono Car and The Edge of Perception. Your third book is, if I get this correct, Apocalypse. Is that correct? So tell us about that one.
Okay, well, Apocalypse, the digital dystopia is coming. It's a story that, again, people have reviewed it and they're really taken aback by it. Because it's about what's happening now. People are addicted to their cell phones, to their video games. There's a device that comes out, a virtual reality viewer that everybody wears. In fact, it gets to the point where it's required by law. And it is a world that is controlled by a computer that is controlled by someone else. And it's a very frightening thought because many people think that's happening right now. I have a device that is similar to the thing that speaks when you speak to it. There's a device similar to that in the story, and it's actually listening. It's actually speaking when it's not supposed to, which is what everybody is afraid of right now. I've had stories from friends saying that they were talking about buying a headset, and then when they go online, they're seeing ads for headsets. And all they've had with them is their cell phone. And they're convinced that their cell phone has been listening to them. Technology is there. Is it actually happening or not? We don't know.
Well, there's been stories about Alexa and Siri automatically responding to something when people didn't specifically say, Alexa, do this, or Siri, do this.
Right.
It just automatically responded, and that has brought that issue up. I'm curious, though, about the item you just mentioned. You have a virtual world controlled by a computer, controlled by a person.
Right.
So my question is it really a person or is it AI?
Okay. It is an AI computer, but it's controlled by a person. I am an old-fashioned computer geek, and computers do not have intelligence. Computers can only do what they're programmed to do. Even artificial intelligence, in my opinion, is almost a misnomer. It's a computer simulating intelligence. You ever seen a film called 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Mm-hmm.
And in that film, there is a quote unquote intelligent computer. But even they say, is it really intelligent, or is it only mimicking what an intelligent person might do or say? So in my story, there's a person behind it. The computer does a few things on his own, but there's still a person behind what's going on.
Okay, I kind of actually thought you were going to say, well, you have to read it to find out. So, but thank you for sharing that. You mentioned, of course, your fourth book that's getting ready to come out, which is the sequel to The Chronocar. Give us a little hint. First off, when is it due? And give us some information about it.
Well, I'm actually just finishing the final draft. I'm hoping to get it done before the end of the summer. It's hard to describe it without giving away some of the secrets of the first novel, except to say that it is the end of the story. When you get to the end of this book, that's all there is to the story of the Chronocar. And this is one book that would only make sense if you read the first one. Part of the trick of the book is that time travel itself is dangerous, and it's how time travel works that becomes a big part of the plot of both books. Again, it's very difficult to talk about it without giving stuff away.
That's quite all right.
Well, I will give you one clue. I'll give you one clue. And in this universe, you can only travel in time in one direction.
Interesting. And so we'll have to read to figure out if it's forward or backwards or...
And what that means, sure.
Okay. Now, you've written other things, but there's something that you have on your website that kind of intrigues me, and it's called the Chicago History in Fiction and Nonfiction.
Yes.
So tell me about that. What is that all about?
Well, I have a friend, he's a history writer. His name is Joe Ruley, and he was trying to set up a presentation at a bookstore. And they were saying, Joe, this is great, but we do this all of the time. And he says, well, what if we did something different? And he and I got together and put together a unique program. Again, his books are all historical. They're about they're about socialism. They're about the Haymarket riot. The Chronocar is science fiction with an element of history. The other two books even have some history and a lot of research. So we talk about the research that was done for the fiction book and for the nonfiction book, and how that helps to tell the story. And it's been extremely popular. We did one presentation this year of the newer version, and of course we had the COVID-19. So now we're planning on an online version, which visit my website. You should hear about that in a week or two.
Okay. So I'm curious, is there any difference when you're researching history for fiction versus nonfiction?
Well, no, except when you're doing fiction, you can't play with history a bit. But I like to make it as accurate as possible. One of the things I learned from Isaac Asimov when it comes to science fiction, and even this, he always liked to start his stories with real science and then extrapolate into the fiction and the fantasy, making that all the more believable. So in the Chronocar with the history, I started off with real solid history, things you could look up and confirm. And then from there, I sort of took off a little bit, changed a few things, and I did so with the science also of the time travel. And to this day, I have people asking me, Steve, is that real? Did you really make that up? And it works.
Now, if I quickly, and I may be wrong on this, so I apologize, but if I thought I saw somewhere in your website where you have a definition of what science fiction is versus dystopia. Is that correct?
Well, what science fiction is itself, because a lot of people don't get it. I had a friend who bought a copy of the Chronocar, and he read it just to support me, and he was thoroughly shocked that he enjoyed it because he said, I hate science fiction. Well, the problem is people don't know what science fiction really is. In science fiction, the science, whether real or imaginary, has to be so central to the story that without it, the story will fall apart. Now, by that definition, Star Wars is not science fiction. It's space opera. Superhero stories are mostly not science fiction. They're space opera. So I like to use a pretty strict definition of science fiction.
Okay, because I also know there's hard science fiction and other types of science fiction. So I was curious about that as to the definition and stuff. So you've got the 4 books, you've got short stories. What else are you working on?
Well, I was working on an anthology because I've got about 5 or 6 short stories, and I'm thinking about putting them all together and publishing my own anthology. My other books were published by Wordwoos Publishing. The anthology I would probably do myself. I've got short stories dating all the way back to college, and some that I've written recently. And I might even try my hand at an audiobook, narrating an audiobook. The Chronicar and Edge of Perception are already audiobooks, but not produced by me.
Nice. And I mean, that audiobook aspect, it's definitely a hot item right now, especially with COVID, because everybody's locked up. And as they're getting back into work, they don't want to miss out on those books. Have you been looking into what it's going to take to create your own in-home studio, or are you going to look elsewhere to use a studio? What are your thoughts?
Well, I already have the equipment and setup for that because I do training videos where I work. So I actually already have the equipment to do it. And dating back to my history doing radio and radio drama, I already have the skills, editing and speaking. So it should.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've got the voice for it because you've done that and stuff. So you've trained yourself for that. So.
Yeah, to a certain degree, sure.
So there's a little something I want to touch upon before we go to a break. And you are a part of a team to some degree. You've written your own books, and your wife, Donna Smith Bellinger, has written books as well. Have you guys, I'm going to use the wrong word here, worked together to create any books or any short stories?
Well, her first book, You Lost Me at Hello, Actionable Principles That Move You Beyond Networking. She wrote it, but I helped to edit it and put it all together. She's working on a second one that's still in process. And I've been toying with the idea of getting her to do some fiction. But we'll see what happens there. She's a big fan of Law and Order and detective stories, and I think she should write her own. I'd be more than happy to help with it. We'll see what happens.
That's good that you're able to support her in some way, even though she's nonfiction, you're fiction and stuff. So it's a good relationship in that respect. So I'm glad to hear that. With that, we're going to stop, let our sponsors do their thing, and we will be right back.
Hi, I'm Jerry Reedy, author of the book Heat in the Vegas Night. The book is a true inside story of a group of sophisticated blackjack players that take large sums of money from Las Vegas, led by one man, the boss, who trained a group of ex-college athletes from the Pacific Northwest to use a mirror to see the dealer's hole card in blackjack. The true story, stranger than fiction, is about casino espionage, teamwork, guts and determination, and courage. Find the book at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Target.
Thank you for watching or listening to Indie Beacon Radio. Our sponsor, IndieLector.store, is the only bookstore that pays authors their fair share for book sales. Help authors to succeed and enjoy a great book by supporting them at IndieLector.store. Enjoy a 10% discount with coupon code SHOPPER20 at IndieLector.store. Coupon valid until December 31st, 2020. That's IndieLector.store, coupon code SHOPPER20.
The 5th Annual Authors Marketing Event. 2 days of live seminars in marketing for authors. The only organization that certifies authors in marketing. Live and free to the first 100 authors registered. Sponsored by Bubblish, empowering entrepreneurs, and Indie Store, paying authors for their fair share. Head to www.2020.authorsmarketingguild.com today.
What started as a love letter to her son has become an international love letter for all parents to their children. Now you can read acclaimed author Shanalee Charbonneau's story to your children. When her son was very sick, she calmed him by singing her own song to him. She turned that song into the book, My Mama Loves Me, I'm Her Little Boy. She wrote 3 more magical books for all parents and kids 6 and under. Available at Indie Lector, Amazon, and all local and national outlets.
Authors Marketing Guild is a membership-owned organization designed to help authors succeed and learn how to better market and sell themselves and their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com and receive so many benefits you'll wonder why you didn't join sooner. That's authorsmarketingguild.com.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois. You're watching or listening to Indie Beacon. And we have Steve Bellinger with us. We've been talking about his books, his awards, his short stories, his overwhelming career in a lot of creative aspects and stuff. And I really want to make sure people do check out his website so that they can see the remake of World of the War. Or, I'm going to say that wrong, so will you say it for me?
Well, it's a remake of the War of the Worlds. It's entitled Day of the Martians.
There we go.
If you go to my website, stevebellinger.com, you can see all the stuff about my books. In the lower left-hand corner, there's a picture of a little old-fashioned radio. If you click on that picture, it'll take you to the page with that information. I have another website that actually covers both of our books, and it's called Bellinger Books. And there you can see Donna's book, my books. In fact, you can actually order an autographed copy.
Nice. Okay. I'm going to definitely check out that 1974, I believe it was, version of that. It should be quite interesting because it was an exciting piece that Orson Welles did. I mean, it changed the world in so many ways as far as the communication aspects and real life and stuff. So it'd be interesting to see what you did with it and stuff.
There was even a case where a friend of mine said he was listening to it on a stereo. His girlfriend walked in the middle and freaked out because he thought it was happening. Because it's done in the same way.
Cool. So on your website, let me ask you this. Once COVID is kind of settled down and we're back doing book festivals and stuff, will people be able to find on your website where you're going to be and how to reach you and all that fun stuff?
Absolutely. On the very first page on the right side, the left side, there is a calendar. You'll see all of the upcoming events.
Cool. And are you trying to plan anything? I know everything's up in the air, and Chicago has the Print Lit Festival coming up that was rescheduled for September. Are you doing that or other programs?
Yeah. In fact, Joe Rulli and I will both be there, and we have a slot at the Chicago Writers Association tent, and we'll be there for 3-4 hours selling books. There is a group in Lisle, Illinois that have already approached us for something in October. So we'll see what happens. We're going to be doing the online thing for sure, and then once things open up, we'll get out there.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to being there in Chicago for that September event on Print Lit. It should be a lot of fun. We're excited to participate. It'll be our first time, so we finally get to meet you and meet some of the other people there and stuff. Social media. It's a great way to get the word out there, even though you may be hesitant, considering what you've written. But can people reach out to you on social media?
Yes, in fact, you can go to Author Steve B on Facebook. Just search for that. All of my books have their own pages. You can search for The Chronocar, Edge of Perception, or Apocalypse, and they all each have their own pages. I have a Twitter link. It's actually called Computer Steve B. It dates back to when I was doing computer training. And that's as much social media as I do intensively. I kind of mess around with Instagram, but Facebook and Twitter are where I do most of my posting.
Great. We're reaching about the end of the show, so I always ask my guests, do you have words of wisdom for somebody who wants to become a writer?
Well, I was 65 years old when my first novel was published, so it's never too late. But don't wait till you're 65 to write.
And I have to agree. Both of us, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, were inspired when we were between the ages of 10 and 12 to write. I waited until 30 to actually write my first short story that got published. And as you mentioned, 65, and I know a lot of other people wait, which is typical, unfortunately, because we know we have to earn that living. And writing is not always easy to do. So, well, I want to thank you very much for being with us, and I wish you the best of luck, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website.
Indie Beacon Radio with the host, B Alan Bourgeois.
Indie Beacon Radio is produced by B Alan Bourgeois for Authors Marketing Guild LLC, copyright 2020. Voiceover by Randy James, Lydia Bello, and B Alan Bourgeois. To be a sponsor of the show or for more information, please email us at info@authorsmarketingguild.com. To be interviewed for the show, please complete the form at radio.authorsmarketingguild.com. Music Always Rejoice by Ramcord